Good day, friends. Welcome to the channel. We're building accessory dwelling units. I'm sharing every step as we go. Here's our demo on the whole process of installing one of these Milgard vinyl windows. The first thing I'm going to do every time after I pull the stickers off of the window is remove the screens. If you don't pull the screens out, I promise you they'll get damaged. Not just during install, but when you're painting, you'll get overspray on them. If you leave them inside the building, sap will find a way to drip onto them. So pull the screens out, get them off site or in a shed or in an attic somewhere where they won't get destroyed. It helps to have a nice sharp razor blade. I'm cutting a 45 on each side. This is gonna get flashed and I'll fold it back down over the window. So I give it one little tack there. And then from here, I'm going to cut right down the center to my side sills. And I can use my finger as a reference point to find it. And there's a lot of different ways to flash a window, to install a window. This is what works really well in our region. And I know that because I've installed hundreds of windows and I also maintain the houses that I install them on. And I know that I haven't had much damage due to weather. So this system works good in the Pacific Northwest. Next, I'm gonna take the slap hammer and keep a nice tight look here. Some people keep the house wrap all the way on the inside. I like to cut it off really short, so the expanding foam that's going to come from the inside around our jamb will seal between the actual trimmer stud and the paper. So if there's ever any airflow that gets behind this paper, it's not going to infiltrate into the house. Same thing on this side. Keep it tight. We don't want to overdo it. The next step, put a nice 3/8 bead of caulking right across the sill. And what that's doing is it's going to give us a little bit of an angle. So if water ever does get behind the piece of vinyl, it's going to flow out. So this is actually a dam going across. Put it in about 1 inch. Fold my sill wrap over it without pushing it down. Again, when that hardens, it's going to give us just a little bit of a dam edge to repel the water. The next thing I do is make sure my window fits, and I've already measured it and confirmed that it's square. I like to put a bead of caulking all the way around. Some people put it on the flange of the window. I like it on the edge of the wall. Across the bottom, I'm just gonna do stitches, so if water ever gets behind there, it can drain out with gravity. A nice consistent bead is important. If we have breaks in the bead, that's a break in the sill. If this was somewhere that was more exposed, if it wasn't under cover, I would put one of these prefabricated corner flashings in. But since this is under a covered front porch, I'm not worried about it. Next step is to seat the window. Before I push it against the house, I'm gonna go back and forth and just center it. Because once I slam it into that silicone, I don't want to move it. People use different things. I use a 2-inch hot dipped galvanized roofing nail with a really thin head. And that works very well for me. So that's what I like. I'm just gonna tack each side, and then I'll throw the plumb stick on it, and we're gonna level the sill first, and then I'll plumb the side. Whenever possible, especially with a heavier window, make sure that both or whatever pane you have is latched. If it's a 1 pane, 2 pane, 3 pane, these are single hung windows. Make sure they're closed so when you pick them up, they don't shift. I use these German Stabila levels. The first most important part of this process is to level the sill. So we want the sill level, and we also want it straight. We don't want any waves in it. And in a big vinyl window, you can get that. So I've got it tacked in the corners. Our sill is level. And then I'm also gonna take the plumb stick on the sides. Plumb is side to side, so we want our sill level, and then we want the sides of our windows plumb. And if the sill is level and the sides are plumb, the top is gonna be level as well. And then the last thing that I wanna check while I just have a couple of tacks in it is how do our windows flow and how does the reveal look at the bottom of the window. In other words, if I turn it, go to close it almost all the way down and the sash is not parallel with the bottom of the window frame, I probably have to do some adjustments. So this window actually went in pretty nice. It helps to have a really level subsill. So we framed these a 1/2 inch over all the way around. So this is a 4030 window, which means it's 4 feet wide and 3 feet deep. And then the window itself is a 1/2 inch smaller than that. You can't probably see it on the video, but I have a nail here, a nail here, and a nail here. And then I'll probably put one in the center of this sash to hold it and one in the center here to keep that vinyl from getting wobbly on a hot day. And then I always like to put a couple across the top. Some windows will say don't nail the header, and that's just if the roof isn't stacked yet. But you can always follow the manufacturer instructions on the back side of the sticker. So I'm gonna finish nailing this off and then we'll cover the flashing detail. As I nail these off, it's going to be squishing out the caulking. And I just like to smooth that over. Flashing is gonna cover all of that, but I do wanna get the excess off. So our trim is gonna wanna set flat against the wall. We don't want a bunch of lumpy, hard areas on the side of our window fin. So I just went inside the ADU and I worked both of the single hung windows. They both run really smooth. They shut properly, they latch, and now I'm gonna do a quick flashing. So when we're doing flashing details on a window, again, there's 100 different ways to do it. This is what I do in this region, and I know it works because I still have houses I built 20 years ago with this same system and they don't leak at the windows. With that being said, flash is all about gravity. We wanna start at the bottom. I use this fortified flash material and it's tar based and it's really sticky, so you don't wanna let it fold back on itself like duct tape, or else you'll be fighting it the whole way. So I hang it over approximately 4 inches. And for our top flash, we're gonna get up on the ladder and tuck this piece in just underneath our house wrap where it's already pre-folded up. That's why we cut the 45 on the edges and fold it up out of our way. And then I simply pull the staple out, let it fall down. And then you can buy Tyvek tape, which is super expensive, but I just use a small piece of this flashing. And what's nice about this is when you puncture it with a nail, it's self-filling. And then on the other side, we have our little piece of tape to cover up that seam. Now everything's flash, so if water ever gets on top of the Tyvek or behind it, it's gonna roll over that piece of flashing, come down, roll over this piece of flashing, and run out down the wall behind the siding. That's a simple window flashing detail. Another thing I would pay particular attention to is not nailing near the weep holes. So every different manufacturer of window is gonna have some type of weep hole where water or condensation buildup on the glass or in the frame has to exit. And in this case, on these Milgard windows, it's right here. So I don't want to put staples here when I'm nailing my trim on. I don't want to put any nails in this zone just because water is always going to be coming out of that. So we can just help ourselves out by just calling this a no nail zone. Here's the window trim detail that we're using. Because this ADU is in the historic district, there were a couple of standards that we had to meet. One was a projecting sill. So we have this cedar prefabricated sill stock. Underneath the sill, we have a 5/4 by 4 apron. 5/4 is a full 1 inch product. A lot of times you'll hear dimensional lumber called by 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 quarters. Each quarter is that of an inch. 5/4 is confusing because it's full 1 inch. Anyways, we have our apron, we have our sill, these are our case legs, and then we have our header stock. So we're using 5/4 by 6 header with a 2 inch overhang. It gives us a nice craftsman look. 5/4 by 4 legs. This prefabricated cedar sill that has a nice pre-cut drip edge. So as water comes off the windows or out of our weep holes, it comes down off this sill, hits the drip edge and falls straight down and doesn't seep back up against the house. There's a lot of different ways to trim out a window. This way is pretty simple, fairly affordable, and it's a nice clean look. Thanks for sticking around to the end of this video. As always, if you find value, you can like and subscribe.